Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 1124.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to talk about the latest with cannabis because we haven't talked about it in a while. It's been rather stalled in political circles where legislation just wasn't moving. And because we didn't get the national laws passed and some of the banking restrictions removed, it's really been difficult for cannabis operators. But I noticed just in the last week, the MJ ETF is up over 15%, and it's up around 18% for the last month. So what's causing this sharp rebound, and is there some news in the background that we should be looking into? Well, I think there is, and on Yahoo Finance, I found an article written by Benjamin Rains, and he says the booming legal cannabis market has plenty of upside. Now, in this article, I'm going to go through it with you, and he gives us all the latest in the political sector and what's going on in the business world, but really gives a good update as to all the things happening that are starting to move in the right direction. So he says the U.S. marijuana industry is booming as states all across the country continue to legalize medical and recreational cannabis. U.S. marijuana sales are reportedly set to jump over 20% to $33 billion in 2022, which is up from just $9 billion 5 years ago and $3 billion in 2015. Legal marijuana sales are projected to soar another 60% by 2026 to hit $53 billion, with that figure possibly on the low end, considering the rapid pace of legalization throughout the U.S., not to mention the rest of the world. Total international legal marijuana sales are projected to soar to well over $130 billion by 2030. 2 more U.S. states legalized recreational marijuana during 2022 midterms to bring the total to 21, plus Washington, D.C. Before we know it, half of the country will have legalized recreational marijuana in a rather short amount of time. On top of that, 37 states operate legal medical marijuana markets. The state-by-state marijuana legalization wave shows few signs of slowing, with states of all political leanings, geographic regions, and other differences rolling out legalization efforts. Plus, a large majority of the country is now in favor of federal-level legalization, which could be possible down the line. In fact, President Biden is set to sign the first official standalone piece of marijuana legislation in early December. All in all, the marijuana market offers investors plenty of long-term upside, with the U.S. legal recreational market only a decade old. Outside the U.S., other countries have legalized cannabis at the national level, including Canada, and some huge economies in Europe, such as Germany, are on a journey toward legalization. Washington State and Colorado first legalized marijuana use for adults 21 plus back in 2012. Now, the U.S. heads into 2023 with recreational cannabis legal in 21 states, alongside of D.C. and 2 U.S. territories after Maryland and Missouri voted to legalize marijuana during the 2022 midterms. The states that currently operate legal recreational marijuana markets or have voted in favor of legalization span from California and Oregon all the way to New York and Virginia. The group of legal recreational states also include Alaska, Arizona, Illinois, Montana, Michigan, New Mexico, Nevada, and others in parts of the country with different demographics and politics. The medical side of the market is spread across an even larger array of the country. At this time, 37 states and D.C. have legalized medical cannabis, with Texas, Idaho, Nebraska, and Wisconsin among the holdouts. Alabama, Mississippi, and South Dakota all have legalized medical cannabis within the last couple of years. The groundswell of public support is also highly encouraging and highlights the long-term momentum for the entire marijuana industry. A huge majority, 68% of adults, support legal marijuana, based on a Gallup poll. This is up from just 50% of the entire country back in 2013. So I want to pause there. I think medical marijuana has come a long way, and people really see that there are natural benefits, and it can provide an alternative to pharmaceuticals that have harmful side effects. Certainly, we've heard veterans talk about their being helped with PTSD and other things with using medical marijuana. And so the fact that 68% of U.S. adults support it, up from 50% in 2013, I think that's huge. And I think the more educated we get and the more we see the medical uses, the more it will gain acceptance. The article goes on to say, a new Pew Research poll published in late November found that 88% of U.S. adults say marijuana should be legal in some form. More specifically, 58% said that marijuana should be both recreationally and medically legal, with 30% favoring medical legalization only. Only 10% of U.S. adults say marijuana should not be legal at all. The pro-legalization push is why so many states have legalized medical and recreational cannabis and why more are likely to join the legal ranks in coming years. The federal government realizes how much momentum is behind cannabis legislation at the state and local levels across the country. Congress is more focused on marijuana than ever, with multiple bills floating around Washington. And I want to pause there. I have heard about these different bills. Now, of course, what is wrong right now is that each state has different laws, different packaging, different taxes, a whole different structure. So trying to gain any kind of cost advantage by being able to use the same products across different state lines just doesn't really exist right now. Everything is so individualized, it makes it very difficult to get any economies of scale. So manufacturers tend to stick to their state or other states that are fairly similar to their laws, but they also don't have any banking laws, so they still have to maintain cash and cannot do banking. So they can't have a bank account, they have to have these warehouses where they stash cash and hire security. There's all kinds of additional costs that come with not being able to be part of the banking system. But because we haven't removed the laws of criminality around marijuana, this is still a problem. So these are some of the bills that are already in Congress that have been proposed, but they just haven't been passed yet. Lawmakers are pushing for marijuana legalization in states like Ohio and Pennsylvania. On top of that, there was a federal legislation effort introduced last year, and the bill grabbed a large amount of national media attention and could gain steam as more lawmakers come on board. The growing number of federal legislation efforts on both sides of the aisle makes sense because elected officials try to focus on issues that a large majority of their voters care about. Some of the top lawmakers in Washington are dedicated to passing some form of cannabis legislation as soon as possible. I want to pause there. We also know that medical marijuana provides jobs and it also provides taxes, and those are two things that lawmakers seem to be in favor of, and so this also gets support from both sides of the aisle. The article goes on to say, as investors and many others wait for federal legislation, they should take comfort in the fact that a medical cannabis research bill just became the first ever standalone marijuana-focused bill approved by both chambers of Congress. The new effort, dubbed the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act, will make it far easier for scientists and medical professionals to study cannabis. This effort could prove key to a wide-ranging cannabis legalization bill finally happening in Washington down the road. In terms of international expansion, Canada legalized recreational marijuana in 2018, becoming the first major economy to do so. Since then, the tiny European nations of Malta and Luxembourg legalized cannabis near the end of 2021. On top of that, Thailand officially legalized cannabis in the summer of 2022, which was the product of a slow effort that began in 2018. Hopefully, Thailand can start a larger legalization push in Asia. Looking ahead, the country of Colombia recently began to make progress on a cannabis legalization bill. On top of that, German government officials earlier this year unveiled the groundwork for nationwide marijuana legalization. If the largest European economy were to legalize cannabis, it would likely have huge knock-on effects throughout the continent. The rapid state-by-state expansion and booming growth in established states have helped legal marijuana sales soar from $3 billion in 2015 to $27 billion in 2021 and $33 billion in 2022. Looking ahead, U.S. retail cannabis sales are projected to climb to over $50 billion by 2026, with some reports projecting total international legal marijuana sales will soar to $130 billion by the end of the decade. The trend is unstoppable. Medicinal marijuana is already legal in 37 states, with 21 allowing recreational use. It's already legal in Canada, and there's movement in Mexico and throughout Europe. Plus, most marijuana stocks are still trading at big discounts. So I think that's a good place to stop the article. There's a little bit more there, but you can see how the trend is really moving in the favor of medicinal cannabis. And it's something that I haven't really been able to update you on for quite a while, so I wanted to do that, give you a fresh update, let you know all the sales trends in place are looking strong, legislation is looking like quite a possibility, and we continue to move in the right direction. It might take longer than we think, but at least there is a lot of bipartisan support behind the bills. So it's looking like they're moving in the right direction. And maybe that rebound in the MJ ETF is telling us that there may be something about to happen. So we'll have to monitor that for you and see if that's the case. I want to remind you this week is the Link to Global Investor Conference. It's free and you don't have to be an accredited investor to attend. It's 3 days of different CEOs, venture capitalists, investors with a Midas touch, talking about private equity, that is private businesses, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, all kinds of very interesting investing ideas. And if you are already wealthy or motivated to become wealthy, either way, this is the kind of information that you want to experience because it's giving you the best kind of research, which is right from the horse's mouth. When you hear from the CEO about a company or you hear from a venture capitalist why they invested in a company, it's so powerful. And I think for anyone who wants to maintain their wealth, grow their wealth, or become wealthy in the future, I can't recommend anything more highly than this conference. There's a link in the show notes. Go ahead and sign up. It's free. And again, you do not need to be an accredited investor. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. Share the wealth and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.